How to build a supportive community. Why would you even want to bother with this? We're busy with Christmas. We're busy with Hanukkah. We're busy with New Year's. We're just busy, busy, busy. Research has shown, however, that we are less inclined to be community-oriented. I'm proposing 3 steps to build a neighborhood right there in your backyard type of thing, and other people's backyards who surround you, a supportive community. Why? People from other areas get a lot of their news from really strange news anchors. What I'm suggesting, there are 3 things why you would want to build a community. One is history that people, your neighbors, have already experienced and they can share with you. Really cool stories. Secondly, true life lessons. Another instance where you're not getting this from television, it hasn't been manipulated, but it's people who lived through something that's really interesting. True life stories. Lastly, when you build a community, you have support from others, from your neighbors. Now, here's examples of all 3 of those. Number 1, history. Who lived through or experienced the first moon landing? Myself, I watched it in 2nd grade on our school television set. Not a conspiracy theory, the real thing. The astronauts traveled around the United States and talked to other people about their experiences. Now, this is history in the making. That was phenomenal that JFK made that happen because he had the will. There's always a way when you have the will. Another interesting history was when the pilot, Sully, landed his plane on the Hudson River. I lived in New York at that time. That was phenomenal. It was in the middle of winter. So these are historical lessons, historical events that you're hearing from real people. Even if you saw it on television when you were young, you got to talk to the astronauts if you were lucky enough they came to your town. But that's what's so important about having a community. You get to learn real life history in today's world. The other instance of true life lessons, where I lived in New York, I lived in something called the Mikado Inn. This inn was created for silent film stars. Now think about that. Silent film stars from the 1920s. So the Mikado Inn had been closed down during World War II. Gosh, I can't remember. It had to be World War II. Was closed down because the Japanese owned it. They put them in an internment camp. Now that's amazing to think that we did that to the Japanese, who had simply built this beautiful inn that straddled the Croton River in Croton on Hudson. And to think that they had to leave it, abandon it, and then in 1956, the seniors, that's their last name, the seniors bought this, divided it up into little apartments. Amazing. Some of the apartments were huge. There were 3 bedrooms. Absolutely one of the most beautiful places I have ever lived in my life. But now think of that. This is history that you don't hear anything about. And just the fact that I learned this story, I was also born in Japan. I was also born in 1956. So that's just an amazing incident in my life. True life lessons, learning that the Mikado Inn was owned by the Japanese. They built it for the for the silent film stars to come up and perform. That is true life lessons. And of course, history. Just learning from elders about their experiences in perhaps the war, or how they were living in foreign countries because that's where they were stationed. People who live in Morocco, people who live in Germany, to hear their firsthand stories of what other cultures are like. Lastly, when I lived in Croton on Hudson, I also learned, now there's a magnificent reservoir called Croton Reservoir, and it was built hand-built by Italians. And this, again, was back in the 1900s. So here we have immigrants from Italy who built this astounding reservoir, and actually all the reservoirs were built by Italians in that area of New York. And that water, those reservoirs, is what gives pure, clean water to New York City residents. Think about that. Yeah, Italians built the reservoirs. Yes. So immigrants, we love you, no matter what some other people say. Lastly, the third point is support from your community. My experience of getting support from communities is people are always offering me rides in their cars, my neighbors, because I ride my bike everywhere. I sold it during lockdown. For me, this is a dream come true. I thought I was going to have to move to Europe to live in a small village where I could bike all the time and shop on my little bicycle. But no, I am able to do that where I moved in Florida. All my neighbors are nonplussed. I ride my bike everywhere, put my backpack on my back when I go shopping. I go everywhere on my bike, everywhere that's nearby, that's feasible. All my neighbors want to give me a ride. But there's also ways that your neighbors can support you. What if you got locked out of your house? They might have to help you get your house open, get that door open, or take a screen off your window. Maybe, perhaps you've been scared by something in the neighborhood, and you can talk to your neighbor about watching out for you. That's what I mean about a supportive community. Make friends with your neighbors so that you do feel comfortable asking them to watch over you, especially our senior citizens. But single moms with kids, remember there was a saying by Hillary Clinton, it takes a village to raise a child. My mom she was a registered nurse. She worked the graveyard shift a lot of the times. During the summer, we would go to our neighborhood pool, never washed my hair. It was green as could be from the chlorine. My neighbors would literally take me by the hair outside and wash my hair. So I was also raised by the village. To segue into Kundalini Yoga, I am still recording Abundance because it has really worked for me. I want other people to use it. It's messy, it's with an orange, but it has the most beautiful music. So if you don't do anything, just listen to the music. Lastly, because I believe our world is in such turmoil, I want people to curtail or just basically stop drinking. So I've put on here recipes for mocktails. I've also put a book on here by Ruby Warrington it's called Sober Curious. Therefore, if you're trying to maybe cut back or you're having second thoughts about drinking too much, this is a nice way to start your research. I'm Valerie Hale. I create this podcast once a week to help people improve their thinking process. I call this a DIY self-help podcast. Merci, au revoir.